Hello and welcome back. This is Waiver Wire Week 4 show. So happy to have you guys back here. Excited to talk about some guys we should be picking up on the waiver wire. Hopefully, you guys, tonight was Monday Night Football. We had the Ravens and Lions game. Lions ended up winning that game. It was a pretty fun one. Hopefully, you guys ended up winning your matchups. If not, that's what we're here for. Let's take a look at some players here. We're going to go right into it. We're going to talk about the biggest player to pick up right now. This is going to be the best player out there. As you see, you're looking at one of the leagues that I'm currently in right now. Well, that guy's been picked up already. His name is Trey Benson. Trey Benson, if you've been watching my shows, if you've been watching the waiver wire shows, or even if you heard me talk about this guy in best ball streams, he should have been a guy you've been stashing up until this point. We just got the unfortunate news about James Conner, and now that opens up a door for Trey Benson. Trey Benson's profile is pretty well as far as a running back goes. I think he's going to jump right into this RB1 row, not just because there's a void present and now he could just walk right into it, but because he's talented and he's capable of doing many things, as we see here this past week 3 when he came in shortly after James Conner's injury. He came in 10 attempts, 42 rushing yards, 4 targets, 3 receptions. Yes, the 9 yards is not appealing, but those things are going to trend up. Trey Benson, if he is out there, Yahoo is currently saying 52% are only rostering him. Just about half of Yahoo leagues still have him out there. If he is out there, y'all, you should be putting all of your fab money on him. That's how good of a player he is. That is how good of a player he projects to also be with his new row. We know there's guys like D. McCardo, who is also in that backfield. Not too worried about it. They may throw the football a little bit more, but I still believe that they're going to have somewhat of a balanced attack. This guy right here should be your number one priority this weekend. I'm glad to have him on some of my roster. I'm glad to have him on some of my best ball teams. But, like this league here, I do not have him, and that is okay. But if you are a James Conner owner, I'm sorry. That's very, very unfortunate. Hopefully you did stash him. And if you did not stash him, we're going to keep taking a look at other running backs. So I just wanted to make this known. Again, some of y'all may already have them, but for those that don't or are in a league with Trey Benson available, once again, I personally believe that the majority of your fab money should be it should be going to this man right here. All right, that's Trey Benson. We're going to get into a few other folks. Running back, as usual, hasn't been. It's getting thin, and that was something going into draft season that we already knew, given how running backs were going really early and often, and then a lot of the other reasons is because currently the NFL is playing right now in a way where you don't have a lot of workhorses. You don't have a lot of the bell cow running backs anymore. Most teams are deploying running back by committee, RBBC, and that doesn't give us much options. Yes, maybe options to throw out there, darts a good hit, but as far as the guy who's taking the majority of the snap share, those guys are usually roster. The other guy I wanted to mention, I have mentioned him. I think I mentioned him, week 3 waiver wire show. I mentioned him. His name is Kyle Manungai. You guys know where he plays for. He is one of the running backs that plays for the Chicago Bears. As you see here, I do have him. This is a keepers league that I'm in. I have to update that name. I have yet to do it. I'm in too many leagues and keep forgetting to update some of my league names. But anywho, 13% roster. Kalman and guys, just a guy to keep an eye out for. As I've been saying, I think that as we keep going forward, we're looking for those options. DeAndre Swift is, currently has the majority of the workload. Obviously, But for fantasy purposes, it looks good. For real NFL, it doesn't look as good, which means usually you're going to start seeing some other guys trending in there. Even with Roshan Johnson back, he has yet to really do much. Last game, he was inactive. This past game, I can pull up the numbers, but he was also basically non-existent. So I don't even recall if he played a snap or two. I think I did see him in special teams. But again, as far as a running back and playing in that backfield, the guy who's getting most of the work behind DeAndre Swift was Kalman guy. 6 attempts, 16 yards. And, obviously we want to see more as far as his average per carry. And then we're starting to see targets still. He had one target here, but a lot of it, if you watch that game, they were taking full control of the passing attack. Caleb Williams, just shy of 300 yards, threw for 4 touchdowns. So at that point, you're not really needing these running backs to be utilized as a passer, but again, or as a receiver, I should say. But again, DeAndre Swift has been that guy. And while he is RB1, he's going to get all that work. But Kalman guy is a guy to keep an eye out for, as I keep mentioning, and he's going to be a good handcuff. Which honestly, before we get to this next position, I just want to mention how valuable handcuff becomes as the season continues to move forward. You have guys like Kyren Williams. If you have Kyren Williams, I would be looking into getting Blake Corum on my bench. You have other handcuffs as big as Tyler Algier. If he is out there, I still wouldn't have him out there. I would be rostering him right now. I just think that he's someone you should be stashing, especially if you have Bijan Robinson. But if you don't, I think he becomes a really good trade asset to those who do own Bijan Robinson. Or if not, something were to happen to Bijan Robinson, you have a guy who's going to carry in that load, and he's going to be RB1, just like we're seeing with Trey Benson. Another guy to keep an eye out for is Braylon Allen, who is the backup to Breece Hall. One other name that I wanted to throw out there before we get to the quarterbacks is Taj Brooks, the rookie. Taj Brooks plays for the Cincinnati Bengals. We can take a look at real quick here. There are other names here. We're going to just swing right by. But Taj Brooks is someone that I want to, keep an eye out for, just simply because, even though you see that and it doesn't look strong, Chase Brown's going to have a little bit of a tough time. But if something were to happen to Chase Brown, they're going to need someone to come in. We just saw what happened with Samaje Perine. He had a really bad miss this past game. I think that Taj Brooks is going to get all the opportunities to be the guy he was drafted to be as far as the RB2 behind Chase Brown. Again, handcuff is all I'm mentioning here. If you have Chase Brown, this is someone I want to start prioritizing because, of course, it's fantasy football. If something were to happen to your starting running back, it would be nice to have that guy that is playing behind him. This offense doesn't look that strong now, especially with Jake Browning being there. But throwing names out there, especially with how thin things are. Cam Scatterboo, you ain't going to find him out there. And if he is out there, you better throw 100% of your fab out there because Tyron Tracy is now out, was just injured this past game that they played Sunday Night Football versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Cam Scatterboo time. Devin Singletary may come in and out of there. I don't think he's really an option. Maybe in a very deep league, 16, 18 team league. But I mean, this far into the season, I think the guy you obviously want to just keep an eye out for is Cam Scatterboo. But again, he won't be out there, but he might be a good trade target for those. Let's get right into it. Just wanted to get those nuggets out as far as running backs go. We're going to talk about quarterbacks. Last week, last waiver wire, we talked about Geno Smith and how bad of a game he had, and I told you to leave him out there. Well, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, this is what Geno Smith is for us right now. He is going to be a waiver wire player, meaning if you need a spot starter, because there has been so many injuries at the quarterback position, Geno Smith may not be a bad option. Last week, he wasn't a good option for me, and I told you guys not to touch him. But look at this week, what he does. This is what he's going to be capable of. Again, I really hope that you're not in desperate need where you have to start him week in and week out. The idea then would be to hopefully trade for somebody. But Geno Smith becomes interesting now because I want to mention we are now getting closer. We are in week 4. We are getting closer to the bye weeks. I want to make sure that you guys understand how important this is. By week 5, we are expecting, I believe there's 4 teams. That's the Chicago Bears, the Green Bay Packers, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Those 4 teams, if you are rostering one of those starting quarterbacks, the Jordan Loves, the Caleb Williams, maybe you're not rostering at this point Michael Penix, who has not looked great, and Aaron Rodgers, who you're probably not rostering, that's all fine. But the other 2 guys, you're probably rostering, especially with Caleb Williams' big game that he just had and Jordan Love. If you are a owner of any of those quarterbacks, I would be looking into the waiver wire if you already don't have a backup. Usually in one quarterback leagues, we don't carry backups because we want to add more roster spots, but there are some leagues where you do prioritize a backup quarterback, especially in Superflex and in 2 quarterback leagues. Just throwing out some names: Geno Smith, Marcus Mariota. As long as Jaden Daniels is out, we saw the type of outing that he had, and he ended up doing 207 yards, 1 touchdown, but this was the big part right here. 6 rushing attempts, 40 rushing yards, and a touchdown, which brought him up to 22 fantasy points. There's other names here. I'm not too in love with Sam Darnold. Again, you're going to have to just be in that point. Tyrod Taylor, we're hoping to hear back and see if Justin Fields is back from his concussion protocol. Carson Wentz. To be honest, Carson Wentz is not that bad of a play, especially with how bad J.J. McCarthy has looked. Carson Wentz kind of looked really decent in this role, and anything under KOC, Kevin O'Connell's offense in Minnesota, you got to see a little bit of what Sam Darnold did. I think Carson Wentz can still give you something solid in an offense that's very quarterback friendly. 173 passing yards, 2 touchdowns. Not bad at all for a spot start player. Matthew Stafford is the guy I'm going to keep talking about. Again, 17 fantasy points, nothing to just blow your mind over. Here, 21 fantasy points. If he can give you anything around this, as far as bye weeks start coming, again, it starts next week, which is bye week 5 for 4 teams that I already mentioned and named. These are the kind of quarterbacks you just want to have ready to go in case you need to spot start due to those bye weeks or, God forbid, an injury that happens to your team. Outside of that, not a lot of great options right there. I'm still holding out hope that Cam Ward starts becoming a little bit more relevant fantasy-wise. I think it's going to take some time, but all the potential still there. All right, that is quarterback. We talked about running back. We're going to go right into wide receivers, which, let me tell y'all, there's a lot of interesting names. And if you guys saw the thumbnail to this video, you saw the 2 wide receivers that I am really interested in this week. I'll get to those, but we're going to talk about some of them here. Trey Tucker. All right. Is Trey Tucker really just a fluke? Well, this is the kind of stuff he does. This is going to be more of a spike week kind of guy. If you need depth at wide receiver in a deeper league, I don't think he's a bad play. I think he's going to be prioritized by a lot of folks who are in desperate need of wide receivers. I think that could be a trap. And I could be wrong once again, but I'm not too sold on it. If you do look at the numbers, the advanced numbers, you'll see that he was out there running a lot of routes and had a big, healthy snap share. But overall, when you're looking at that offense, it really starts with Brock Bowers, then Jacoby Myers, and then maybe Trey Tucker. Maybe Deontay Thornton, maybe Jack Betch becomes something at some point. We're not really sure. I don't think he is as fantasy relevant. He might be more of a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 potential. Of course, when he has these type of spike weeks, look at that, 9 targets, 8 reception, 145 yards, and then 3 touchdowns. I don't think that's going to be consistent enough. We'll see again next week when we're having this conversation, and maybe I have my foot in my mouth and I'm talking about him again and saying, you guys got to go get him. But I highly doubt that. So I'm going to take a stance and tell you, I'm not a true believer that this should be a priority this week. I'm going to get to one of my favorite guys right now, Torrey Horton. Let's talk about Torrey Horton. Torrey Horton was a 5th round pick for the Seattle Seahawks. Torrey Horton came from Colorado State, really good player, all the talent in the world. One of the things that the Seattle Seahawks doesn't have is an outside receiver that's really just solidified that role completely. We see guys like Jake Bobo, who actually is not a bad wide receiver, but for fantasy purposes, I think that Torrey Horton gives you more potential for sure. We have guys like JSN who operates mostly in the slot. Yes, he could play outside, but he operates mostly in the slot. So does Cooper Kupp. So they kind of like they don't really play off of it. They're looking for that guy, basically, is where I'm trying to get to. And I don't think that you're going to see Cooper Kupp really hold down to a role where he's playing outside most of the time. And I know that this is a run first kind of offense, but man, Torrey Horton, you just saw it this week. 4 targets, 3 receptions, 32 yards, and a beautiful touchdown that he caught from Sam Darnold. I think this is a guy you should be stashing. I think this is a guy you should be prioritizing this waiver wire because I think his role is only going to grow. We've heard nothing but good things from this regime as far as when they drafted him, and he had a pretty good preseason and a really nice offseason. A lot of positive news that we heard from training camp. He's someone that I have some exposure to in best ball just because I believe in that talent. We talk about spike weeks. I think he'll have the spike weeks, but more importantly, I think he'll have a more defined role. I think that right now he's more wide receiver, fringe wide receiver 3 with the potential to be wide receiver 2 in that offense. I think Torrey Horton is a guy you should be absolutely keeping a close eye on and prioritizing this week. Next player we're going to get to that you guys are probably familiar with. His name is Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney last year was a player that had a really good role with Kirk Cousins. It was a guy who got a ton of targets from Kirk Cousins. He's a really good wide receiver. I think that Darnell Mooney is actually a very underrated wide receiver. He was on the Chicago Bears. They didn't get to utilize him much after his rookie season, which was really strong and really, really good. I think that he's a player that when you are in desperate need of wide receiver depth, if you're a team that just lost Mike Evans from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, there's a few other players that have gone down like CeeDee Lamb, which I'm going to get to shortly, that you're going to have that are not going to be around for a few weeks. Darnell Mooney becomes an option. 11 targets this last game. He caught 4 of them for 44 yards. He's got a role in this offense, and I expect him to have a few bigger weeks here and there. I know his bye week is 5. That's okay. I think he's just a guy that you want to keep in there. Hopefully you're not having to start week in and week out, but as far as a spot starter, he's got wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 potential. Basically, he's a flex player on most days, depending on who you have on your bench. I think Darnell Mooney is probably the more popular wide receiver you should be keeping an eye out for this week. Let's get to the next topic here. CeeDee Lamb, really unfortunate. Got to see that Bears-Cowboys game. That was a good one. Really good as far as a Bears fan. Getting to see Caleb Williams really popping off. And more importantly, the offense looking really solid. Yes, it is the Cowboys defense. We'll see how they look next week versus the Las Vegas Raiders. But when we get into this topic of CeeDee Lamb, all right, this is going to be good for George Pickens. George Pickens isn't truly a volume type of player, but man, he's a really good player as far as fantasy goes because he can catch, and I've said this in the past, 6-7 catches for 100+ yards and a touchdown, and you're doing phenomenal. He's a guy you're going to be locking in the starting role from here on out, and especially while CeeDee Lamb is out, his role obviously increases. But who's going to be the next guy? We know Jake Ferguson, as far as a tight end, had a monster game, double digit targets, double digit catches, really good game. He's going to get a lot of opportunities as well with CeeDee Lamb. But who's the other wide receiver? That's where it gets really interesting. Kevontae Turpin currently has a role right now and I think that while CeeDee Lamb is out, he's going to probably be the guy who kind of comes in and plays a lot of that slot role that he's a little more familiar with, and a little bit of what CeeDee Lamb does. I think he does. Schottenheimer likes to get really creative with players like Turpin, as you see here with the rushing opportunities. I think he's good for big plays. Obviously, again, if you're in a 3 wide receiver league, hopefully you're not having to start him. I still don't think he's a bad option, but just someone to keep in your radar. If you are in desperate need of a wide receiver, I think the decision goes from Kevontae Turpin to a guy that a lot of Cowboys fans aren't very fond of, but has talent. He really does. He just hasn't looked the part this year. But I know last year he had a lot of opportunity. He already built a rapport with Dak Prescott. This is a guy I think may pop from here on out until CeeDee Lamb comes back. But it's so hard to tell you because we're looking at wide receiver 3 and probably option 3, option 4 in that offense. It's an offense that's going to be clicking on all cylinder for sure, but very focused, very heavily focused on guys like Pickens and Jake Ferguson. But this is a waiver wire show, so we are going to talk about some guys that you can put in your bench if you have room, so that you can start, stashing some players that might have some bigger opportunity due to injuries. All right, I have a few more here that I wrote down, but we're going to get to the main player that I wanted to talk about. You guys saw him in the thumbnail. I already spoke about Trey Benson. I already spoke about Torrey Horton. My next guy is Luther Burden. Most teams, and I think in this league right here, I believe someone already has him. This is a keeper league. I would not be surprised. Sure enough, yes, he is. He is currently rostered on someone's team. 11% roster. Listen, y'all, I know a lot of people and a lot of videos you're going to watch are going to probably tell you that Luther Burden is not the player you should be going after. But if you pay attention really closely to how his snaps have been increasing, his targets are, it shows one by one here increasing. If you're listening to Coach speak stuff like Ben Johnson speaking last week, discussing that he wants to get Luther Burden more involved, and you think about the draft capital that the Chicago Bears actually spent on this player, he was picked in round 2, early round 2. Luther Burden was one of the top wide receivers in college. He was a big recruit going into Mizzou, and his first year with them, he was the focal point of the offense. Obviously, the following year, he had a bit of a drop-off, but that only helped a team like the Chicago Bears land him in the second round because he was easily first-round talent. I think that Luther Burden wasn't drafted for no reason. I think that he is going to continue to have a role. And if we're talking about names like Torrey Horton and going down to names like Kevontae Turpin, yes, Darnell Mooney is more of a priority for the wide receiver position as far as a solidified role. I think that Luther Burden is just a perfect stash player, because if something were to happen to any of the receivers in front of him, or you automatically see this guy's role increase, the type of potential this man has for upside weeks are great. Just look at this: 3 targets, 3 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown. Yes, it was a big play on a flea flicker from Caleb Williams, but that is the type of player that Burden is. Burden has the capability of giving you these type of fantasy points. If you follow my stream this offseason, and I'm sure a lot of best ball streamers were touting his name, it's just simply you watched him in college and you know the type of player this player is. His profile is elite, and I think that he has a lot of coming for him. Obviously by week 5 here, but don't wait too long, because he has another monster week. This guy's going to get stashed and picked up for the rest of the season. Someone to really focus in on. Luther Burden is a name I wanted to mention for sure. Let's go right into tight ends. I have a few names. I know those are even harder to find. Excuse me. Hunter Henry, monster outing. I think Hunter Henry is a great player to have on your bench. I think that he's a good player that if you need to start, listen, tight end is always outside of the Brock Bowers and Trey McBrides of the world, and maybe even the Tucker Craft. And I'm probably missing somebody right now. There's not many options. So I think Hunter Henry is perfect for spot starts week and maybe possibly starting him depending on the matchups that he has. He played in this Josh McDaniel offense in the past. 11 targets is really solid. 8 receptions, 90 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really solid outing from Hunter Henry. Mark Andrews, some teams dropped him. Some teams have him on their bench, and they missed out on a phenomenal performance from him tonight, which was 6 receptions, 91 yards, 2 touchdowns. Wow, we've been missing this. Mark Andrews probably had, what was it? In the first 2 weeks, he had a total of 7 yards within the first 2 games. And this week, he has the type of performance that we're used to having from a Mark Andrews. That was very positive. It was good to see. I would definitely be claiming him. If I were you, I myself might look into that depending on my tight end position for those leagues. But yes, and I want to throw in a dart play here. I want to throw a stash guy, a sleeper play, and that's Oronde Gadsden. Oronde Gadsden had 7 targets, 5 receptions for 46 yards. You might be looking at me and asking, are you watching the Los Angeles Chargers? Do you not see all those receivers that they have? We have Ladd McConkey, we have Keenan Allen, we have Quentin Johnson. Yes, I see all of those. But this is fantasy football, and we are looking for options, and we are looking for opportunities at different positions, and tight end position is usually one of the toughest positions to find. It's usually one of the thinnest positions to find some consistency. And if you can stash a player of this caliber, this guy can easily pass Will Dissly, the Tyler Conklins of the world. That's how talented Oronde Gadsden is. Really talented player. I have a lot of him in best ball as well, but this was really nice to see this past week. Again, I'm not starting him next week. Maybe this is a guy, if you have space in your bench to stash, I think the upside with him is big. All right, that is tight end. I'll name one more player for you guys. I mentioned him last week. Likely did not return this week, but he is likely returning next week. Yes. I would keep a close eye on him. I know Mark Andrews had a really good outing here. But again, that offense operates very differently. They're looking for their red zone threat. I don't know if DeAndre Hopkins continues to be that guy for them. Zay Flowers really isn't that much of a red zone threat. He's a great receiver. He's good for fantasy. Yes, all those things. But likely is that red zone and had a good row before he got hurt. All right, I'm going to end the show in a positive spot here. If you are streaming defenses, I want to give you 2 quick options. I know that the Chargers is probably a team that's going to be out there for most of y'all. They are currently in Yahoo 49% roster. Los Angeles Chargers are playing the New York Giants. If you saw how bad Russell Wilson looked this past week, I think this is a good opportunity with how good the Chargers defense looked. And just overall, that team looks great. But the Chargers defense is playing really good football. I think they're going to give the Giants a hard time. So I think that this defense, again, streaming defenses, this is a team you can look into based off the matchups. And the next team that I want to mention are the Detroit Lions. Had a really solid game today versus the Baltimore Ravens. And even after giving up 30 points, they still managed to score 8 fantasy points, 7 sacks, 1 fumble recovery. They looked really good tonight. And if you guys were watching the game, it was really good to see they're playing the Cleveland Browns, whose offense is nowhere near the Baltimore Ravens offense. And Cleveland just lost another solid offensive lineman for the season. They're starting to look really tough offensively, I think it's worth a shot. Again, if you're streaming defenses. All right, y'all. That is it for the show. Thank you so much for hopping on. I appreciate you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe. Another thing this week, wow, man, this last video, week 3, thank you guys so much for watching. We got really good feedback from it. A lot of folks were able to view. I really hope that we can do that again with this episode here and really just grow this channel. Again, we're building a community for all of us to join. I don't want to sit here and act like I'm some expert that know more than anybody else. I just want to sit here, learn the game all together, and really keep working and finding ways to attack and beat our matchups. Make sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel. Also on the very bottom of the ticker, you'll see my Instagram handle and my TikTok handle. If you guys can still show some support there as well. This Sunday, we've been doing it the past 2 weeks. I'll be on 10:30 a.m. Central. That's 11:30 a.m. Eastern, doing a live show. Start sit questions right before that slate locks. We'll talk Survivor. We'll talk some DFS. Last week, I was able to break down DFS for a little while there too. So feel free to hop on, share it with friends, let others know. And yeah, thank you guys so much. I'm so appreciative right now. I'm so happy with this turnout and really excited for what the future has for this channel. Appreciate y'all. Have a good day. And I hope you guys land everybody you have claimed or wanted in this waiver wire week. Peace, y'all.